It's good. It's been pretty hard the first week. We're just building up to our first game on Friday, so it's one we're all looking forward to. Just finally getting football underway and getting the running out of the way and stuff like that. It's a necessary part of the season, but we're just looking forward to getting the games underway now.
Can you give us an insight of what it's like under the new management team here, or the management team here?
It's pretty intense, the work that we've been doing. It's not a lot of running, it's a lot of ball work and stuff like that, but it's things that we need to be doing day in, day out, and it's been hard, but the boys have taken to it pretty well, and we're all enjoying the training.
Davie, I guess a number of fans will look at it and see the squad and think the season's getting closer and closer. What can you tell them in terms of personnel and whether new recruits are on the way?
Well, we're working on it. It's obviously, I think there's 16, 17 players left at the end of last season, and we've brought in some additions, and quality additions at that, so it's important that we get some quality in to help the group that's already here, but we are working on it, but nothing that's imminent.
There's nothing like stopping targets from coming because of the level the team is playing at this season?
No, we've not found that. We've brought players in from good levels, and everybody we've spoken to and brought in have been really keen to come here to see the infrastructure, to see the stadium, to see the training ground, and Rangers has got a lot of things that people want when they're players.
Can you tell us about a couple of lads, at least 2 or 3 are here, for a better phrase, on trial, or having a look at you, they're having a look at them? What can you tell us about these lads?
Just as you said, just lads who are in having a look at us, and we're having a look at them, and I think people who are out of contract need to get fit, need to get training, and I think it's working both ways, so I just think it's a mutually benefit to us, so we'll continue to do that, and if something stands out and we take it further, then we'll let you know then.
In the case of John Eustace, is it obviously John had that knee injury which ruled him out for the rest of the season? Is that the concern there, to make sure everything's all right in that front?
I think everything's all right with John's knee. There's no doubt about that. He's been checked out. It's just a matter of getting fit now, John. So that's part of the process as well, getting him up to a standard where he can play some games and get training again.
How many more do you think you need, David, before the start of the season?
I don't think you can put a number on it. I think it's just, as I said earlier, it's getting quality rather than quantity. So it's something we're continually working on, and we're going to be really careful to bring the right types in. We've brought some really good players in, Danny being one of them, and we want to add to that, but they've got to be right.
Paul Murray was saying that he likes Scott Allan as a player, and that's somebody that Rangers should be interested in. From the management's point of view, is that somebody that's actively on your radar?
I don't think we talk about individual players. I think that's unfair on the other club and on the player. I think there's targets in place that we're looking at, but until we're further down the line, or they're signed, then I don't think it's fair to speak about them.
You say you want to take your time and get the right player. Are you confident you'll have the squad that you want to have by the start of the season?
I think that's a continued process. I think monitoring players and trying to get players is difficult, because players have got options, and we want good players, and good players will have many options, so it's difficult, and getting the right ones in, as I said earlier, is really, really important. So I think it's better to maybe miss out on some players if you're not sure than to jump in and maybe regret it later.
Have you had any thoughts on your captaincy as well? Is there any movement on that? You said that Danny's a potential future captain.
I think we've had discussions again, but there's nothing being confirmed there, and we're constantly talking about things, talking to the players about things, and when that is, we have decided on that, then we'll let you know. But it's an important appointment, and it's, especially at a football club like that, it's something that's got to be taken seriously, and we'll give it the due care and consideration that it deserves.
Danny obviously came through the ranks as well. You've had a chance to be around during pre-season. What do you make of the youth structure here since coming back as a seasoned professional?
The youth structure?
Yes, what have you seen?
I've not seen a lot of the youth structure really. There's been some boys have joined in training, and they've acquitted themselves very, very well. It's a big step to go into the first team, but it looks as if that some of them could play their part of the season. That's obviously, it'll just be how they do, how they bed in so far. But so far they're doing well. I can't comment too much on anything else that's going on in the youth structure, because I know that they're making some changes there, and time will tell.
Danny, do you feel that there's something special building here? Last season you might have got that impression at Hearts, and it proved to be the case. Do you feel that that's the case here this season?
Yeah, I think so. I think I wouldn't have joined otherwise. I wanted to be part of something successful going forward. It's going to take a wee bit of time, but we're putting the building blocks in place for that. And the managers, like you said, and Davie just said there, they want to bring in the right type of players, and I'm sure they will. Going forward, we just need to put our work in, and if they add to the squad, then great. But the ones that we've got here have been doing great so far, and you know, going into the games, we just need to make sure we're ready for them.
How good is it to work with David again? The two of you had a good partnership in 2009-10.
Yeah, it's great, but I've said before that you know, it's a different relationship we've got now. You know, he's the assistant manager, and you know, when I was young, he was there to help me. But you know, I'm a bit older now, and I'm sure that if I've, you know, put a foot out of line, or if he's got something to tell me, I will. And you know, I expect that, and I respect that about him.
David, how much has he matured and developed as a player from the one that you played with as a raw 17-year-old?
I think he definitely has. You know, he's had a lot of experiences. He's played some football. He's, you know, played in a different league, and I think he's had great experience. And I think we're really fortunate to get him. I think, you know, to bring a young player like Danny with the quality he's got to the football clubs, I think it's a massive advantage for us. And you know, we're really pleased to have him here. So he's a better player than when he left. There's no doubt about that. He had a great season last season at Hearts, and you know, was a big part of their success. So I think we're really fortunate to get him here, and we look forward to him staying here for a long time.
Davie, I noticed that Alec Miller was the latest former player at the weekend to come out and say that Danny's lacking in ambition by coming to the Scottish Championship. Is that those sort of comments insulting? How do you view those sort of comments?
I don't really read them, to be honest, in regards to, I think everybody's entitled to their opinion, but you know, lacking ambition, I wouldn't accuse Danny of that. I think he's came here for the right reasons. We had the discussions, we had the conversations, and Danny asked all the right questions. He asked about where we see the club going, how we're going to work, and you know, the fitted what he wanted to do. So I don't think anybody would be happy to come to the Championship if there wasn't a plan of getting out of the Championship, and that is our plan. And you know, Rangers as a football club need to have a plan and need to have progression, and Danny's a big part of that.
What chance of Lee McCulloch being added to the coaching staff here?
I don't think that's something. I think Lee discussed an academy role, but Lee's going to get a lot of offers. You know, he's a good player. He's going to be a manager at some point in the future. So I'm sure he will have plenty of offers and plenty of opportunities to go and stay involved in the game. But I think his decision primarily will be whether he wants to keep playing, whether he wants to go into coaching, or you know, whatever route he follows. But I don't think he'll be making that decision lightly.
Have you spoken to him?
I've spoken to when?
Just more recently, in terms of any potential
I speak to
role
him.
here?
Yeah, I know Lee, and of course I speak to him, but I've not spoken to him in regards to anything at Rangers.
What would your advice be as somebody that played into your 40s?
I think it's an individual case-by-case basis. I think, you know, there's a cliche about playing as long as you can, but if you get the right offer to go and coach, then, you know, depending on your circumstances, you've got to take it. I don't think you can make, you know, a set-in-stone decision, and you know, that's good for everyone. I think you as a person have got to make the right decision for you and your family, of course.
Not ruling out the fact he could come back here then?
I can't rule it out, but you know, as I say, I've not discussed it.
Davie, there's a lot made into previous management here about like a scouting system. Has there been any alterations made to that so far?
No, not as of yet, but as you say, it's a fundamental part of a football club, and it's a big part that Rangers have probably lacked. You know, it's been well documented that the scouting structure hasn't been as thorough as it needs to be, and you know, my experience is the best clubs have the best scouting structures, and it's something over a period of time the club need to put in place. But it's definitely one thing that we're working on, but there's been no changes as of yet.
Is it having an impact at all on your attempts to rebuild the squad?
Yeah, it makes it harder. Obviously, if you've got people in place and you know, you've got a structure in place, then that helps. But those things take time, and you know, it's important, as I said, with players, you make the right decisions and make the right appointments, and you know, staffing wise as well as it is in players.
How comfortable are you with the pre-season preparations in terms of friendlies? I think Burnley's the only one you're going to play in front of a crowd as such. I think you've got a couple behind closed doors. Are you content that that's going to be enough to get you guys?
Yeah, definitely. That was our choice, you know, and you know, we came in relatively late, and we had to adjust to that and make plans to that and try and do it as we see fit to get us ready for the start of the season. And we had, you know, 2 cup draws that still had to take place as well, so everything was changing, and you know, we're happy with the plans we've got in place. And we've got, as you say, we've got a couple of games. We've got Burnley, Ibrox as well, so there are some good games coming up, and you know, it's up to us to do the work to get us ready for the start of the season.
Danny, when you see the numbers for the new season ticket renewals, 20,000 plus, does that kind of reaffirm your decision to come here?
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously, you know, having a big crowd there is important, you know, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we're putting on performances that are worthy of the big crowds that are going to come and watch us. And you know, there's been a great response so far with it being, you know, before the public sale. So, you know, the more fans we can get in, the better. But like you say, the product on the pitch has got to be, you know, worthy of the numbers that are going to come through the gates. And you know, that's what we're working on out there to, you know, make sure we're playing, you know, a winning style, but also a good style that's on the eye.
And I mind you said when you were presented as a Rangers player, you said, well, people want to criticise me, they can. What has been the reaction since you signed?
I think you said a lot of people have criticised, but it's not something I'm overly fussed with. I said at the time, I wasn't saying it just for effect. You know, people can comment on it and say whatever they want, but the only thing I can do is try and be successful on the pitch, and then, you know, maybe people's minds will change, but I'm not fussed about it. They can say whatever they like. I think, you know, it'd just be better once the football starts and we've got something else to talk about.
And if you were to be made captain?
Yeah, it'd be a great honour, but, you know, I've been a captain before, and, you know, I know that, you know, that as a captain you need players around you that will help you. So, you know, whoever the captain's decided to be, I'll make sure that, you know, I'm there to support them every step of the way.